They're showing up for everyone else, but it's coming at a cost, and the cost is themselves. Welcome to Life and Love by Design. I'm life and relationship coach Odette Coronel. This podcast is for individuals and couples who are done living on autopilot, who are ready to understand the patterns shaping their relationships, their choices, and their sense of self, and redesign them with purpose and intention. Here, we don't just talk about what's hard. We name what's actually happening beneath it and what to do about it. And if you start recognizing yourself or your relationship in these conversations, know that this is the exact work that I do with my private coaching clients, individuals and couples who are ready for real change. Because a meaningful life and connected relationships don't happen by default. They're designed. So let's begin. Welcome back to Life and Love by Design. My name is Odette Coronel, and this podcast is about how to live and love with purpose and intention and not by default. So today, I'm going to tell you about a version of myself who was very proud of the fact that I never did anything for myself. Every action that I did revolved around someone else, whether it was my kids, my husband, my business. If there was any extra time, any extra money, any extra space, it always went to someone else or to one of my other responsibilities. And honestly, I'm embarrassed to admit that I actually wore that like a badge of honor. I told myself that that's what a good woman does, that that's what a good wife does, a good mother, a good business owner. I was the one that always showed up. I was the one that always took care of everyone and everything and put out the fires. And the problem wasn't just that I was doing those things. The problem was that I was doing it at the expense of myself. And what I didn't realize was that what I was calling being selfless was actually self-neglect. And I know that I'm not the only woman that does this. I hear from my clients, I hear from my friends, and I know of lots of women, especially moms, that have similar stories. And today I'm going to tell you something that sounds small, but in my life, it was kind of a big deal. And the story revolves around Pilates. And I'm sure most of you know what Pilates is, but in case you don't know, Pilates is this exercise that is a cross between, I guess, yoga and some kind of strength training. I don't know how to describe it. But the truth is, it's really not necessarily about Pilates. It's actually about giving permission to take up space, permission to want something, permission to prioritize yourself, and permission to do something just because you want to. And that one decision changed a lot more than I expected. And let me be very clear, just so that you know, I am not the woman that you would expect to become obsessed with Pilates or any type of exercise. I have never played sports. I've never been into sports or exercise. I'm not the type of person that wakes up at 5 a.m. to work out. That just wasn't me. And in fact, for most of my life, doing something like Pilates would have felt very unnecessary, probably even selfish in my mind, because from my perspective, there was so many other important things to do. There was work, there was the kids, there was laundry, there was dinner, there was endless things to do. And if I ever did think about doing something for myself, the thoughts that came to my mind were, why would I spend time doing that? I should be doing something productive, or that's really not important. But what I realize now is that underneath all of that, there was another belief. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I didn't believe that I mattered too. I believed that everyone else's needs deserved a space on my calendar, but mine didn't. And again, I wasn't even aware of it at the time. But a lot of things were changing. My children were getting older. And at some point, I realized that something needed to change. I was doing all the things. I was showing up for everyone else. I was holding everything together. But just somewhere along the line, I feel like I had lost myself. I didn't feel connected to myself anymore. So I want you to stop for a minute and ask yourself, have you ever felt that way? Have you ever felt like you're showing up the way everyone else needs you to show up, to the point where you don't even know what you want anymore? And you can run your career or your business. You can show up for your kids. You can run your household. You can be there for your husband or even your parents if you have elderly parents. A lot of people are taking care of elderly parents as well. and you handle all of the logistics. You smile, you show up, but quietly you start to disconnect from yourself. Maybe even a little bit of resentment and frustration starts to build. And I remember that was me. But then, I started seeing videos. I don't know why. I don't know what happened with my algorithm, but videos started showing up about Pilates. And I became kind of curious. And this little voice in my head started, kept coming up and it kept getting louder. And it was telling me, oh, that's interesting. You should try that. And not because I had a huge fitness goal or not because I wanted my body to look a certain way, just because I wanted to, just because I was curious about it. It looked like fun. But even saying that out loud felt kind of strange because I wasn't used to making decisions like that. I wasn't used to just doing things just because I felt like it or just because I wanted to. Not if it was about me. If it was about my kids or my husband or anything else, then yes, I would spend the time and the money. But when it came to myself, I just didn't. And I'm almost embarrassed to admit it. So in my case, the hardest part was not about actually going to Pilates. It was about giving myself permission because the guilt showed up immediately. The voice in my head said, you don't have time for this. This is too expensive. This is so indulgent. And I know that a lot of moms, especially, know what I'm talking about when I talk about the guilt. So many moms talk about guilt. Guilt for feeling exhausted, guilt for feeling frustrated, guilt for wanting to spend time on their own and do their own thing, for guilt for having needs. So that's what actually happened to me immediately. Because we feel guilty for resting. We feel guilty for wanting more. We feel guilty for everything because we've been taught that our value is in showing up for others and taking care of others' needs. So if we stop constantly giving, then who are we? But you know what? I decided to do it anyway. I decided to not listen to the guilt, to just quiet that voice and try it anyway. And you know what happened? Nothing. Nothing happened. The world kept spinning. My kids were fine. My husband was fine. My work was fine. My clients were fine. Dinner still got made. The laundry still got done. The only thing that changed was me. And I admit that I was shocked that, the world didn't fall apart and that nobody felt abandoned. And, at first it was just Pilates. And it's really just about an hour, a class, time carved out that belonged only to me. And then little by little, something started to shift. I started to feel connected to my body again. Not because I was trying to change anything or not because I had a particular fitness goal, but just because I was listening. I was present. I was taking care of me. And the woman that I started to become because of that was different. I became a woman who takes care of herself. I became a woman that honors herself. I became a woman that knows that she matters. If you're doing all the right things, you're showing up, you're holding it together, you're being capable and responsible, and yet something in your life and relationships or your marriage still feels off, then give me a few seconds of your time because this message is for you. Relationships don't usually fall apart because of one big event. More often, it's the small everyday moments when we stop being intentional or we stop really listening or we stop choosing connection. Those are the things that create distance over time. I work with thoughtful, high functioning individuals and couples who aren't broken, but they're feeling disconnected or misaligned or just wondering how they got here. In my coaching, we slow things down. We try to understand what's happening beneath the surface. We identify the patterns that are shaping your relationships and your choices, and then we intentionally design what comes next. So if you're listening and you're thinking, this feels like me, that's not an accident. I offer a complimentary relationship and life alignment audit. It's a focused 45-minute conversation where I'm going to help you gain clarity and identify what comes next. You can book your session by visiting odettecoronel.com. I would love to connect with you. And the most important part of all is, I have 3 children, I have 2 girls and a boy, and I realized my daughters are watching. And whether we know it or not, we're teaching them what it means to be a good woman. And I didn't want them to think that being a good woman means abandoning yourself. I want them to see a woman who loves her family and is there for her family, but also loves herself and takes care of herself. A woman who gives to others, but also gives to herself. And a woman who takes up space. Because when they see me choose myself in healthy ways, I give them permission to do the same. And this is exactly the work that I do with my clients because so many women that I talk to, they're living their version of a similar story. From the outside, they look like they have everything together. They are successful, they're capable, they're strong, they're showing up for everyone else, but it's coming at a cost. And the cost is themselves. They're putting themselves last, or they're feeling exhausted, or they're feeling unfulfilled and frustrated. They feel stuck, disconnected. They don't even know what they want anymore. And the worst part is a lot of them feel guilty for even wanting more. And what we discover together when we start working together is that you don't need to blow up your whole life. And you don't need to become a completely different person. That's not what this work is about. This is about giving yourself permission to finally be who you truly are. The next level isn't about doing more. It's about finally allowing yourself to matter. And, sometimes it starts with a boundary, or sometimes it starts with asking for help. Sometimes it starts with speaking up. And sometimes it starts with Pilates, or a walk, or a class, or an hour that belongs just to you. Because the action, whatever it is that you choose to do, is not what matters. The point is that you're taking up space too. The point is that reminder that you matter. And when a woman starts believing that, that's when everything changes. So if you're listening to this and you've spent years putting yourself last, if you've convinced yourself that there is no time, no room, and no permission for you, I really want you to hear me. You're allowed to want to do something for yourself. You're allowed to take up space. You're allowed to do something just because it brings you joy, or just because it's fun, or just because you want to. And you're allowed to be a woman who takes care of herself too. And the beautiful thing is that when you start to do this, you don't lose the people you love. You simply find yourself. And that version of you is more alive and more connected and more present and more joyful than you ever were before. So maybe your version of Pilates is different. Yours might be finally taking that trip, or starting that business, or giving yourself permission to hire a coach to guide you to the next level. Whatever it is, this is about giving yourself permission, because your next level actually starts the moment that you realize that you don't need to wait for someone else to tell you that you're allowed. You're ready. So if this episode resonated with you, I would love to hear what your version of Pilates is. What's that one thing that you've been wanting to do, but just haven't given yourself permission to do it? You can leave a comment, send me a message, or share this episode with someone who you think might need to hear this. And remember to subscribe to the episode so that you don't miss any future episodes as well. And if you're ready for your next level, if you're feeling disconnected, you're tired of feeling stuck, you're tired of putting yourself last on the list, through my coaching, I help women rediscover themselves, reconnect with what they want, and intentionally create the life and the relationship that they truly deserve. So go to the show notes and book a complimentary next level consultation with me. And until next time, remember that your life and your love are yours to design. If today's episode described you or your relationship, then this is your moment. You don't need more information. You need a new way of living, choosing, and relating. And that's the work I do with individuals and couples. If you're ready to stop repeating the same patterns and start designing your life and relationships intentionally, visit the link in the show notes and book a complimentary relationship and life audit. Remember, your life and your love are yours to design.